8th, 2026 to order. I will notice public access to meeting either in person, we also stream, and then we also video, and you're able to access our meeting in full on our website anytime you'd like to watch it. We will move into the meeting opening, and if Nicole, you could do the roll call and verification of quorum, please.
Ms. Mercer?
Present.
Mr. Kowalski?
Here.
Mr. Pope?
Here.
Mr. Liebrick?
Here.
Mr. Lepak?
Here.
Ms. Potter Nelson?
Here.
Ms. Scott?
Here.
Ms. Erler?
Here.
Ms. Bushman is excused.
Great. So we will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will move into the public comment section. We allow email public comment as well as in-person public comment. Did we receive any email public comment?
No, we did not.
And did we have anybody sign up for public comment tonight?
We did not.
Is there anyone here this evening who would like to address the board who has not signed up? Seeing none, we will move into our next item, which are our presentations. And first we'll have Sarah with our communication report.
Hello, thank you. All right, so let's jump right in with like my favorite picture of the month. Congratulations to Roosevelt for winning that Spirit Check this year. June storytelling, looking back obviously on our May storytelling was we just had so many good stories to share. This is not all of them, they don't all fit on one slide. So just to make sure we're hitting some of those highlights for you. I specifically want to call attention to, I think the district's done a really nice job of increasing its opportunity to celebrate staff, specifically through the Classroom Impact Awards that Chris and Jeff did, our own recognition, just communication around the retirement dinner. We've added some communication awards, so I just want to commend those that have really kind of upped their game there this year and last year as well to really make sure that we are celebrating staff at the end of the year as we are celebrating students. Taking a look at our social media engagement, obviously up month over month and year over year significantly. This is just the month for that. There's so much going on in May. It would be hard not to have that engagement go significantly up. We almost hit 1 million for impressions, which we have not done before. So that is now the new goal, is to hit 1 million impressions in a month.
New goal.
Probably not in July, but we will do that. Our highest views for the month was this little Spash Panthers clip that I grabbed when I was up there. The students traditionally throw all of their papers, they count down the seniors on their last day. Grabbed it really quick. It's really not even a good video, but the internet really liked it. So I was happy to share it and happy to see just people celebrating along with our students. Did make sure to make it really clear that students do stay to help our folks clean that up afterwards. They do not expect just our custodial staff to do that. So cheers to our students and Spash admin for making sure that they are doing that. Website and digital campaigns, as we move kind of into the summer months, while enrollment is always something that we are continuing to track, I've got that there, but also wanted to highlight just a few other pieces of information or events that are taking place that we really are using that website to try to communicate. The most important one I think to this group is that Point Proud Schools 2040 Task Force. We have established just a one-page landing page specific for that task force where folks can go get meeting summaries, all of the materials that have been shared, and we'll continue to do that as we move through. So if there are folks in the community that are looking for information, or if you hear of that, it can get there. It's just our regular pointschools.net and then /2040. So we've tried to keep that really simple. Obviously there's other places they can navigate to that on the website, but if you see that or hear that in the community, this is really the best place for people to find all of that information. We've also established a program and budget evaluation website really specific to the work that Chris has been doing and sharing. So we have not actually pushed this at all yet. We have some communication shared for it. It just exists. We're still putting some final tweaks on that, but already have 75 views on that. And some engagement. That event count is like people clicking links or people downloading information. So we'll see those views go up, but just wanted to call attention to that. Summer school, obviously views are really high on that. Event counts are high on that. Summer school is looking, I believe, really great as far as from a communication standpoint. Our back to school shows total views as 0 right now. We had not had this live when I gathered data. So I anticipate that will continue to go up, but it does exist. It's our same pointschools.net/back to school, because we finished, so let's start thinking about next year. We've obviously got like supply information on there. We'll continue adding as stuff becomes more pertinent to parents as we go through. And then enrollment is very static right now. We don't have any specific campaigns pushing our funnel to those, but continue to receive views there. Looking ahead, I just wanted to call attention to what we had completed over the last semester. I meet with each of our admin folks that will meet with me for 15 minutes and just kind of ask what went well this year, what could we have done better, what projects could you have used more support, what projects did we support really well, and we'll take a look at that in July and really plan out our year moving forward into next school year. But just when we look at kind of things we had completed this year, it'll be very similar, that planning and alignment, engagement and recognition, making sure we're continuing to build internal capacity and support, specifically around those WCAG requirements, assuming they don't get bumped back a year, but we're gonna keep moving towards that, assuming that those will be required in April of 2027. And then campaigns and communication, specifically to align with board goals, Corey's goals, kind of whatever comes out of that. Also cheers to, Corey for giving Harper a really big hug. That's my last one to graduate. So. All right, with that, I will take any questions.
No questions, Sarah, but I know it can't be easy making all of those landing pages. They are very useful when we are communicating out to the public, though. I have utilized that task force page multiple times on social media and across emails and other places. It is extremely helpful to have that information at hand.
Anything else? Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks.
Thank you, Sarah.
All right, we will move into the superintendent's report. Corey?
Yes, okay. Again, this month we had donations to the district. The Wisconsin Society of American Foresters gave $494.59 to the Boston School Forest. Dunkin' Donuts donated $569.50 to the Boston School Forest. And the Rotary Club of Stevens Point donated $758.29 to the Boston School Forest. So thank you to those organizations and businesses. We also had a donation of $2,305 from the Glenn Stacy Memorial Fund to help students that are either blind and or visually impaired. So thank you very much to that donation as well. One of our students, Autumn Fields, has received the highest rank of Eagle Scout. She completed 32 merit badges and 42 hours building a dog agility course for the Humane Society. So congratulations to Autumn for that honor. And congratulations to Carson Anderson. He is our first student from SPASH to complete the Heavy Machine Operations Apprenticeship Pathway. So that's an exciting new thing for our Youth Apprenticeship Program. Also, the WIAA is celebrating 50 years of the state softball tournament. And they highlighted our softball program with record-setting excellence. We have had the most state titles with 9. We've had the most consecutive titles with 4. We've had the most state appearances with 18. And our coach, Tom Droner, was the coach with the most state titles. And again, our softball team will be playing at state on Wednesday at 1:30. So we wish them the best of luck on Wednesday. First day of summer school is June 15th. Just a reminder for board members, we have the WASB Learning Symposium that takes place at the Holiday Inn on July 10th and 11th. If you'd like to attend, please let Nicole know as soon as possible. And then I'm going to turn it over to Liz. She's going to give us a quick update on the last task force meeting.
So at our last task force meeting, it was a lot of information that was given to everybody who was there. Chris shared some really helpful information about test scores, class size, policy, things kind of from that curriculum perspective to help inform some of the decisions and answer some questions that had come up about 4K. Just a whole bunch of, a lot of information, just in a various different ways tied to curriculum. And then Mike talked with us about school budgets and our budget, some of the projections that we've seen. Mike used his cup analogy as we have seen, and it got rave reviews from everybody. But I think it was really helpful. All of that, a lot of things that were shared, different people had said, oh, I didn't know we had a class size policy. Oh, I didn't understand school finance as well, like that cup analogy. I think every group said the cup analogy helped them make sense of it. So I think right now it's still a lot of information that we as a board have heard kind of throughout our time in working to convene the task force, but it's not necessarily information that everybody knows. Lots of really good questions were generated, and I believe we meet very soon again next Monday. I was like next week, I think. So, and I think we're still kind of in that information stage. So,
Thank you, Liz.
yeah.
We get nothing else out of this. We have 45 people more who understand the budgeting process.
Which is a good thing.
Exceed the community.
I mean, like everybody really, it was really helpful for them to understand just how messy some of it is. So it was both sets of information were really helpful.
Board members have any questions for Corey or Liz? Okay, we'll move into the consent agenda. It includes the minutes of the organizational school board meeting, May 12th, 2026. I will point out to you that there are amended minutes that have been, the only change in them were the dates for the committees from the previous meeting were wrong in the minutes. So Nicole has changed those dates to accurately reflect the correct minutes. So we have those minutes. We have the minutes of the prior school board meeting of May 11th, 2026. We've got the approval of the scheduled monthly bills, and we have employment recommendations. Do we have employment recommendations this month?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not seeing that. Oh, right here, yep, okay. All right, so I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor with aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any with nay? Motion?
We not have to do all.
We have to
Call.
roll call with bills.
Oh, that's right, we do have to, thanks, Jim. We do have to do a roll call.
Ms. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Pope,
Yes.
Ms. Mercer,
Yes.
Mr. Kowalski,
Yes.
Mr. Liebrick,
Yes.
Mr. Lee Pack,
Yes.
Ms. Potter Nelson,
Yes.
Ms. Erler.
Yes. All right, we will move into business services. Jen is excused from the meeting tonight, so we're gonna have Mike walk us through the committee meeting.
We talked about a few different things. The primary things was Carla came and presented the ski shack that they're gonna build at the Boston School Forest. Thankfully, Carla's not here tonight, so thankfully Chris has volunteered to go through that presentation. And then we also went through the preliminary budget, and that I'll present after this is finished. That was really the main thing of the meeting.
So we will be looking at that funding approval request for the ski shack at Boston School Forest.
Thank you, Meg. Thank you, Mike. I am going to attempt to bring at least 1/8 of the enthusiasm that Carla brings to presentations about the Boston School Forest. I will likely fail miserably, but did want to provide an update on what is some exciting news that come along with an action item for the board to consider. So we have engaged in some planning to rebuild the ski shack out at the school forest, and that will also include a classroom. Here you can see that the outline of the total cost of the project at approximately $162,000. The shell kit is about $94,875, the materials at about $30,000, finishing materials just shy of $10,000, and the dry installation will be potentially reduced to $29,000. I do want to highlight here, and Carla was able to share this at the committee meeting, there has been significant fundraising that's happened around this project 2 years in advance of this ask coming to the board. It comes to the board for approval because it does exceed that $150,000 mark that we have outlined in policy that requires board approval. So a special thanks that Carla was able to share to the Education Enrichment Grant Foundation, who provided $3,000. This will allow our geo and construction and our fundamentals and construction students to be part of the construction. So this $3,000 will cover the ability for them to head up to the plant in Rothschild for Woody Building Systems, and they will be involved in developing the walls and doing the staining, and will be involved in some of that installation when they're doing the actual building of the structure. Here's just a couple more costs that are included, and the excavation still don't have a contractor. That's to be determined at about $10,000. The concrete total is about $30,000. Carla was able to highlight here that the inclusion of a basement on the structure does fulfill a really necessary role at the school forest, as it'll serve as a storm shelter in the event that there was ever severe weather that moved through when we had groups of students and our community members out attending an event at the school forest. HVAC we've not identified yet either for a contractor, but we do believe that Mid-State Student HVAC Club will play a role in getting that installation once the ski shack is constructed. Here is an overview of the donations that we've received up to this point, and you can see there on the top. Those are all received. Those outlined in red are part of grant proposals that have been submitted. $10,000 to Monogram Foods, $10,000 to Prevail, $10,000 to Skyward, the Community Foundation at $50,000, and the Donaldson Foundation at $20,000. Part of the motion that we'll ask the board to take action on tonight does request that the board provide letters of support that Carla can include in all of those upcoming submissions. I have drafted all those letters on behalf of the board, and I'll collect a signature from Meg when we conclude if indeed that is the action that the board takes. Those donation accounts, you can see total approximately $139,000, so we're very near what we'll need to complete that project. The installation of the building will begin as early as, or will be complete as early as June of '27, and ribbon cutting for staff and for all of us in this room or community members who are interested in attending is currently tentatively scheduled for August or September of 2027. And that is an overview of the ski shack and classroom project that we have proposed, but I'm happy to entertain any questions that board members may have at this time. Alright.
Those numbers that were in red on the page of donations, are those guaranteed or we hope that?
No, those are, we hope for, right? So those are, yeah, they're not guaranteed yet. Only those that were in black on this slide are those that are received, and we're still waiting to hear back on those in red.
But there is potential there for donations to more than cover everything we have left.
Correct.
Any other board members have questions?
Gee.
Could you give us a figure for the total thing when it's done?
The total there was listed, it's about $162,000, $820. That is the cost, the total estimate.
But
for the
that's
project.
just for Woody Building Systems, that doesn't include the basement.
I believe so the total was outlined in, it's the total there, it's just over $200,000, it's included in the memo. Right, so for the Woody Builder portion is about $162,820. So clarification, Gina.
Carla pointed out that that there will not be water at this point in the building. So it's basically going to be a big classroom. So there won't be a bathroom, sink, et cetera, in there. Again, as she was looking at the cost of the project and looking at the reality of having to raise funding for the project, that was one of the decisions that was made, because that adding that service would have, increased the price.
Right, so that decision was made in collaboration with the governance board out at the Boston School Forest to minimize costs, at least to the degree possible.
Do they know what it would cost to put water in?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure,
She-
G. Carla
Yeah.
may, I can find that
Yeah, we
information
can
out
check
and
with
let you
Carla.
know.
Cause, I mean, you build it and then 5 years down the road, it's gonna cost you more,
True.
you know? So it'd be nice to know what it is.
Yeah, we can check with her. I'm sure she, again, if I were Carla at this exact moment, I would have rattled off. Bring it next time.
You did really well. No, nobody is Carla.
I know,
Carla left and I said, everyone is so excited, and they're not always sure about everything you're saying, but you're so excited about it, they're just happy. I think if you look at the superintendent's report, how many different places have already donated to Boston School Forest, it's such a star in our community, and she said there are other donations coming in already, so I think we're pretty covered at something which is amazing for kids and families. Great.
And I think Carla spoke at the business service meeting about how both Woody Construction and other folks are really excited to collaborate with our students. And so our students will have a hand in, I think she said, staining and other parts of it and going, like, potentially seeing how things are made. So I think that is a really neat student component of this as well.
I agree.
Can you go back a slide or two? There. no,
Here?
No, there, okay. So when I first saw this, I said, well, yeah, that looks like a lot. Almost all of it's in red, which is not money that we have. So, I mean, I think she'll probably end up getting more money than she needs eventually. But I talked to her a little bit and we're thinking, you probably won't get all of the stuff in red. You might get it all, but you might not. So, you know, so, I mean, most of it's in red.
I mean, Gina,
But one important thing to note, we already have $138,000
See,
in our
that's what I
gift
didn't
account.
understand. I thought the black, stuff in black is the 138, right?
No, that's what we've received already in donations, but this is in an account, a Fund 21 account, which is a gift account that's been sitting there for a few years
That money
accumulating.
exists right now.
That's
Yes.
separate from what's outlined.
So
in
to
black.
build the whole thing, we really don't need all of that in red.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay.
So it's sort of, right, we're banking on potentially not getting fully funded for everything we requested, or potentially not getting any of, maybe some of those at all that are currently in red.
I do think we need it though, G, because my quick math said it was about 270 total, so.
I thought you said about 200.
I thought it was just over 200, I wouldn't remember the number that was in the memo, but
I just added up the numbers on the memo, so 162 plus about 30, plus about 10, plus about 30, plus about 30.
so about 270 total.
And Carla will continue to get donations.
What numbers were you looking at? 'Cause
I added up all the
The memo?
numbers in black
Yeah,
column.
and she broke down what all of the costs were
on that page.
No, on the
No.
memo.
in the board packet.
So the whole thing's gonna be like 270. So, okay, so we're not necessarily there yet.
Right.
I think Carla said that too, we're not at the total yet.
and at the business services, we had asked her like we think that she will get the funding, but if she doesn't, she'd also then talked about potentially a delayed time, like places where we could pause. Woody Construction can hold some of the material for a little while, if memory is serving from that meeting. So I think
Correct, and that was what she had outlined, right? If there is a delay and, or if maybe we don't get all of those grants that have been submitted, that we could potentially delay the timeline of it to continue to do fundraising. That's the plan.
I would agree with G that it would be helpful. I'd be interested in knowing what it would cost to provide water to the building. I just, you know, the reality is anytime you've got a classroom and it's in a building and you've got little kids, it just usually is helpful to have a bathroom that's convenient, you know, sink to wash hands or whatever. So it would be helpful to see if, even if it becomes phase 2, but, you know, something that we could,
Stub things in.
yeah, at least stub things or in or get, you know.
Yep.
Yeah, I think
we
that
can
might
check.
be helpful. Okay. All right, so what I guess I'm gonna put out there to the community, I think pretty much every child in this community who has attended public school visits this location at least annually, and families are involved. We have generations of members of our community who have really, really enjoyed Boston School Forest. Carla did note that the existing structure consists of a couple of trailers that were initially at Bannock. They've been at 2 of our schools and then were moved to Boston School Forest. So they were moved there already, well-loved and well-used. But now there've been some infestation of mice and other critters that live out in Boston School Forest, and the structure has lived its life. So that is the reason that we are looking to build this structure to support our kids for generations to come. So we'd welcome any donations. All right, I'm looking for a motion to approve the expenditure from the Fund 21 Boston School Forest account and approving the issuance of a board letter of support as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor with aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed with nay? Motion carries. All right, we are moving into the approval of the preliminary 26-27 budget.
Sorry, Mike. No, okay. I didn't have this one queued up, sorry.
I should have emailed it to you, then you wouldn't have to go through all that.
That's all right.
Do you want the present,
You
Mike?
want the present?
Yeah.
Here we go. All right, all yours.
Thanks. And thanks for doing that CCAT classroom presentation.
Sure.
So it's that time of year again, June, when we start looking at the preliminary budget. You do have a copy of this presentation in your packet, and I think Nicole put a little yellow flag on there so you can find it. So you can follow along with the packet, you can follow along on the screen, however you want to do it. So why have a preliminary budget? Well, the law allows us to spend money to operate the school from July 1st until the final budget is adopted in October. And so having a preliminary budget gives us the ability to do that. It is important to note that the preliminary budget's incomplete. There's a lot of things that are gonna change between now and October. So just be aware that this is our best estimate at this point in time with what we know right now. Okay, so I'm gonna start with the tax levy summary. There's a lot of information on this slide. One of the things you'll notice is that we have all of our funds listed and all the expenditures for those funds, the total expenditures. And then we have a revenue and tax levy column. Please know that the revenue plus the tax levy equals our total revenue. So when you look on the bottom, you would add that 104 million to the 51 million, and that would get your total revenue of $155,244,000. Total expenditures are $157,733,000. Our total levy, and this is an estimate, is $51,702,000. That's up $1,617,000 from last year. That's a 3.23% increase. Remember, last year our increase was just over 16%. So we are hoping that that levy stays within that 3 to 4% for the final budget when it comes in October. This year's equalized valuation is $7,464,000,000, and that is up from $7,211,000,000 from last year. And it's an estimate though, we don't actually know what it is. It's an estimate. What I basically did is I took last year's amount, increased it by 3.5%. Probably gonna be more than that, but I thought, let's start with a conservative number. That gives us a levy rate of $6.93, that's down 1 penny from last year. Again, if that equalized value goes up by more than 3.5%, that'll push the levy rate down, assuming everything else stays the same, which it probably won't stay the same, right? So I am expecting and hoping that that levy rate will be somewhere close to where it was last year. I don't see it changing too much. All right, getting into the preliminary budget itself. So there are 3 columns. There is the 2024-25 audited column, those are actuals from that fiscal year. The 2025-26 unaudited column is actually the current budget for this year. We don't know the actuals yet. I didn't want to put budget on there because I didn't want to get confused with the 3rd column. So just so you know, that's actually what we budgeted for this current year. And then the preliminary budget is the 2026-27 budget column. If you look at our total revenue for the general fund, that's Fund 10. The total revenue is $118,221,000. That balances with total expenditures of $118,221,000. Remember that it's balanced. I shouldn't say remember because I haven't told you yet. It's balanced, but I did budget $1.5 million to fund balance and $750,000 to Fund 46 transfer. So that's within that balancing. The next fund is the Special Projects Fund, that's Fund 21 and Fund 27. Fund 21 is primarily donations and student activity accounts. Fund 27 is special education. You'll see that those funds are balanced. Fund 27 gets balanced by transferring money from Fund 10, so just keep that in mind. That transfer from Fund 10 is the actual local cost of special education. The next fund is the debt service fund, that's Fund 38 and Fund 39. Fund 38 is non-referendum approved debt service, and Fund 39 is referendum approved debt service. And you notice that that fund is not balanced, and that's normal. It's normal because expenditures are on a calendar year and our revenue is collected on a fiscal year, so they're never quite equal. Then we get to the Capital Projects Fund, that's Fund 46, so that's that 10-year capital improvement plan. And for expenditures, we have about $2.5 million in expenditures. Those were projects that were approved by the board that are gonna take place this summer, a roof at Spash, there's some PA systems going in. And then the revenue is $885,000, so quite a bit less, so we are using some fund balance there. That revenue is coming from the transfer from the general fund and then also some interest that we are expecting to earn. The food service fund, that's Fund 50, that one is balanced. The trust fund we no longer use, so that's zeroed out. Community service fund is balanced at $837,000. And then we have our total expenditures for all funds at $157,733,000. But when you take out the interfund transfers, because if you don't take them out, you actually count them twice. So when you subtract out the transfers that go from Fund 10 to Fund 46 to Fund 27, special education, then we're down to $144,515,000. That is an increase from last year of 3.13%. And then we get down again back to the property tax levy that was on the first slide. We've got our general fund levy, and then our referendum debt service Fund 38 levy, Fund 39 levy, and community service fund levy amounts. That total $51,702,000, which again was a 3.23% increase from last year. Okay, this next slide breaks the budget down into more detail, specifically the revenue budget by source. What source means is that's where the money is coming from. So, the next 3 slides are gonna be more detailed like this. I'm gonna go through them kinda quick, but, you know, you're welcome to dig deeper in them and ask questions if you have them. Just how it's set up across the top are all our funds, Fund 10, the Special Projects Fund, Fund 20, and so on. Across the bottom are the totals for each of those funds. So the total revenue for Fund 10 is at the bottom there, and I can't read it from here. But I'll just look at it really quick. 118,221,000, and so on, all the way till you get to the lower right corner, which is the total revenue for all funds. Again, that's 155,991,000. Then we get into more detail with expenditures. First by major object. This is the way I usually do my projections. I do it by major object like this. Object is essentially what that money is getting spent on, whether it's salaries or benefits or other things, okay? And then again, set up the same way, the table, it goes by funds across the top, totals on the bottom, and in the bottom right corner, we're at 157,733,000, same as we had already pointed out. And the next one is also more detailed for expenditures. This time it's by function. So function is really where is the money being used. So for example, if I purchase a pen or pencil in math, it's 124,000 function. And that function is part of the account number. It's just a way to track your expenses. So going across the top, same thing, all the funds listed from 10 to Fund 80. And totals across the bottom where you get to that bottom right corner, it's 157,733,000 again. And that's the total for all funds. Now for my favorite part, and I think Ted's favorite part. The revenue limit worksheet. Anyone who likes doing taxes, it's just like filling out a tax form. So we'll start in the upper right corner. That is, basically, that's your starting point. That's bringing in all your information from last year's revenue limit worksheet. So that's where you start. Okay, then you go down to the middle, and we have our enrollment numbers. So the first one is from 2023 to 2025, so that's really, in terms of this, it's last year's or this current year enrollment. And then that gives you that 7,039 up in that upper right side there. And then we have the current enrollment, that's the next one. And notice that third column, so notice what happens is 2023 drops out and 2026 goes in. And 2026 is in red. That means that we don't know what that is yet. We don't know what our enrollment is, so that's an estimate. And the estimate I use has declining enrollment of 40 students. That gives us our other 3-year rolling average, which is the 6,972 amount. And that's less than the previous rolling average, so that means we have declining enrollment. And so then there's a declining enrollment calculation near the bottom of the page in green on the right side there. At the very bottom is the equalized value. That's that 7 billion number. Again, it's in red, it's an estimate. We don't know what that is yet. All right, then we go to the next one. So the top brings in the information from last year's revenue limit worksheet that was at the top of the previous page. Again, that's your starting point. You take that top number and you divide it by last year's enrollment to get your base revenue limit per member. So that's that first $13,656. 13,000, wouldn't that be great? $13,656. And then from there we add the 325, and that gives us our current revenue limit per member times our current number of students from the 3-year rolling average to give us our revenue limit of $97,475,000, and and that's the revenue limit with no exemptions. So now we have to add in the exemptions. So the first exemption we add in are the recurring exemptions. And again, notice it's in red, there's a 77,000 amount in there for transfer of service. It's in red because I don't know what it's gonna be. So that's what it was last year. It doesn't come back, it's recurring, but it doesn't come back to the revenue limit worksheet in that place. It goes into the revenue limit formula and becomes part of your revenue limit. That's why it's a recurring exemption. Okay, so that gets added in. Then we add in all of our non-recurring exemptions. So we've got, first we've got our declining enrollment exemption. That's a one-time exemption, you get it one time, then it goes away. Okay, if we decline again next year, we'll get another one, but it won't be the same exemption. We have our energy efficiency exemption. That's in red, we don't know what that's gonna be yet, but that's a pretty easy one to predict, or that's gonna be really, really close. And then we have the one that we do know, which is the rescinded taxes, $2,126, that's in there. And then the rest we don't know. Prior year open enrollment, will we get an adjustment? Maybe, that's what we got last year, so I used that number. And then I did some estimates to get our private school voucher amounts to give us our total revenue limit of $104,525,000. That's with all exemptions. And then from there, we determine our state aid. So the state aid is calculated in those red boxes on the left, kind of in the middle there, giving us a total of 57 million. Again, those are estimates. We won't know what those are until October 15th. But again, you start with your revenue limit, subtract out your state aid, and whatever's left becomes the tax levy. So that 46,749,000 is levied in the general fund and in Fund 38. And then we add to that our referendum approved debt and our community service to get our total tax levy of $51,702,000. And again, that's gonna be $6.93 per thousand mill rate. Any questions so far? Because we're coming to the end.
I'll let you finish and I have some other questions.
I'm just coming to the end, so this is the repeat of the first slide, just again emphasizing that right now we're looking at a levy change of 3.23%, again down from where we were last year, slightly over 16%. Hopefully that stays in that range, and then the overall mill rate going down by 1 point. Go ahead, G.
I didn't ask questions because you were on a roll. I didn't want
You wanna mess me up?
yeah. So this is like my limited understanding here. But just going along on the very first page, yeah, that one. I look at expenditures, 157 something or other million. And then the revenue and tax levy, I added those together and they're like 156 something. I thought they'd be the same.
Yeah, so they're 155,244,000 when you take the revenue and tax levy.
Yeah.
It's kind of at the bottom there. They're not the same. We do have more expenditures than we have revenue coming in, but remember, part of that's the transfer. There's some transfers in there. And then we have like, here's a really good example, our Fund 46. So we have $2.2 million in projects, but only $800,000 in revenue. So that kind of is part of the reason why.
My question is, are you budgeting more than the revenues then? Or is the purpose to budget exactly what our expected revenue is gonna be?
Yeah, that's my goal. So like when you look, that's why I went through by fund. So when you look at the general fund, it's balanced, right?
Yeah.
When you look at special projects fund, balanced. The only ones that aren't balanced in there are your Fund 46 and Fund 38. And that difference between those two funds not being balanced is what you're seeing, the
Okay.
difference there.
Alright, so that's
That's a good question, and I actually I thought about pointing that out.
Of course you did, Mike.
But then I thought, no way, he's not gonna.
Why, I just look at the big numbers, I don't understand the other stuff.
Yeah.
But, if you go down another page,
Yeah. Let's go. Oh, this one?
no. Preliminary, yeah, okay, oh, yeah, that one.
Yep.
Under special projects fund.
Yep.
No, okay, no, I thought it was the special education fund.
It's
Which
that, yeah, that is the special education fund, special projects
But
fund.
that's like in the tens of millions, right?
Well, I mean, it's also
Special
fund-
projects, but
It's
it's.
also Fund 21, which is your donations and student activity accounts, but yeah, it's up there. That's probably a couple million, for that Fund 21.
But you were estimating it to be the same as last year, the special ed fund?
It's a little bit more, so
Oh,
if
so
you
you
look
did.
at the 25-26 budget, it's about almost $1 million more.
Then, if you go down some more preliminary expenditures by major object,
Okay,
there.
Yep.
So I added up the salaries and benefits, it comes to about 72 million.
yes,
Okay,
that sounds about right.
so if you wanna figure out the percentage of our total budget goes into salaries or benefits, what number do you use to figure that out?
If I wanted to find the percentage,
Yeah.
I would take that total for salaries and benefits and divide it by the grand total, but honestly, I would use, you gotta be a little careful with that, because remember, some of the grand total is like things like, putting a roof on at Smash this summer, you know? So I would kinda go by fund and say, what's the percentage of salary and benefits for Fund 10, our general fund? So I'd take those total salary and benefits up, divide by the 118 million, get a percentage that way. I do the same thing for Fund 27, or for the Fund 20, which is mainly Fund 27, to get a percentage that way. And then you'll notice in Fund 30, we're paying for debt, so there's no salary and benefits there. Fund 40, again, is those projects, there's no salary and benefits for that.
Cause I think usually when we talk about our salaries and benefits portion of the budget, it's somewhere around 65%.
It's 65 to 70, I would say, it just varies.
Okay, so I was looking at 72 and I was thinking our expenditure budget is at 157,
Yeah,
but that's not even 50%.
yeah, well, like I said, when we do that, we don't include the debt service fund in there and the capital projects fund. Those are funds that pay salaries, and the debt is just paying back bonds that we have out there that we have to pay back.
And G, I think if you take a look at it, it looks like you're adding only the salaries and benefits under our Fund 10.
Yeah,
But we pay salaries and benefits, special ed, food service, community service.
Oh, I
Look
see.
Yeah.
Look at it. Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
all
I
the
see.
way across.
that's a good point, Meg, so if you
Yep.
use the all
Never
fund
mind.
total, you're at
Yep.
about 96 million, which is closer.
Yeah, and then one last question,
Okay.
if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Go down to the, yours and Ted's favorite, the taxes. Yes, it is. Only you can say taxes are your favorite.
It is.
Next one. Okay, in the middle, the green lines 11 and 12. You said that was the total revenue limit and then the state aids. If you add those together, that's all the money we get total, right?
You subtract them. So the revenue, remember, it's the old cup example, right? You have the revenue limit, state aid goes in first, whatever is left is tax levy. So that's where you see that happening on paper. You see the revenue limit with all exemptions of 104 million, and then you see our state aid at 57 million. So that's subtracted out, which gives you that number right below it, that 46 million.
So G, if you add, going backwards, it's easier for me to see it, if you add the 46,749, which is the tax,
Yeah.
and you add that to the state aid, so we're adding our tax, what we can tax, and we're adding our state aid, and then that gets us to that total amount that we're able to
Okay.
Our total revenue.
our total revenue.
Cause our budget's made up of state aid and our tax cuts, and then federal.
Yeah, primarily, we have some other sources of revenue as well, but that's where most of our revenue comes from. So it's those two things, state general aid, tax levy. And state general aid is more than our tax levy.
Right.
We're more than 50% aided, so.
Thanks, Mike.
Other questions?
Thanks, Mike.
Is this where we say what Tom always said, these numbers are all wrong?
They're our best estimate to date.
That sounds better.
Yeah.
So I have I guess since we're on this topic, I know, my understanding is that the city of Stevens Point has passed a motion to allow the tax bill insert. Are we moving forward with any other municipalities or kind of where, I'm just
We're at 3, Millador,
curious.
Stevens Point, and, I can't remember the third one. And,
Howard Hall.
no, I can't remember off the top of my head. We have 3 that have agreed to do it to date, and we're gonna continue to meet with municipalities. We've met with Plover, they're deciding internally, we're planning to reach back out to them to ask as well.
Have any said no?
No, not to date.
Thank you. All right, thanks, Mike. So, and Liz, I guess this speaks to your point earlier from the task force group about the complications of finances for school districts. But I am looking for a motion to approve the preliminary 26-27 budget as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor with aye? Aye. Any opposed with nay? That motion carries. We will move into the Ed Services report, and I'll turn that over to G.
We had 2 presentations. The first one was from Brent Kostomsky. And he went over, I guess they're all very similar, but there's like different programs that he works with. CTE, IRC, and YA. Okay.
Industry recognized credentials is IRC. Yep.
Yeah. And CTE was the, I think,
Career Tech Ed.
how do you remember?
And Youth Apprenticeship is YA.
Well, that one.
Okay.
But he went over what happened this past year and with those programs and showed an increase. It's been going on since COVID, after COVID, that the program's been increasing. And I said some new things, Ed Psych course, gonna go on at the high school. They have 53 students enrolled, and that's a dual enrollment class with UWSP. And they had 62 students this year in youth apprenticeship that were placed and and I think he said all but one have completed their internship, which is incredible. And then he said that also we have a program where you can graduate from SPASH with a 2-year associate degree in business administration.
Correct.
Which is incredible. I mean, I find that, he's done a heck of a lot of work. He said that he spends 90% of his time on this. So, it's growing exponentially. And then, was there anything, you had some comments, was there anything else that you wanted to say?
He did talk also about dual enrollment of which is our cooperation with Midstate, and he talked about the participation in that a little bit. Some new things that were coming out there. The Midstate requires most kids involved in a program to take something called GPS for Success. And we now allow that to be taken internally for dual credit. I believe it's only a quarter credit, is that what he said?
That sounds right.
Because it's
Jeff,
really,
yes.
it really can be completed in 2 weeks. Are we allowing them to take that in the summer?
I don't know the
Right
answer to
now,
that,
we've
Jeff.
got that set up, Jim, where they're doing it as a pilot online through our TTS program. And the goal is next year to continue that expansion and then
I just
looking at
know they normally don't do dual credit in the summer, however, I know that Midstate offers it and it's 2 weeks and it's done. And it's nice that we hope, again, I mentioned, I hope we expand with the goal of everything that Midstate offers that's the same dual credit course, but they offer an online version of it, that we have the goal to offer an identical online version of the course so that kids have far more options. There's a lot of flexibility in your time management when you take those courses online that way.
And that's kind of a get ready for college course. And I know.
Yeah, the GPS is basically, this is how you navigate through their Blackboard internal system,
And I think-
which most of our kids who are already taking dual credit courses have to use some of that system anyway. Just me being my own bias, I don't see a whole lot of value. I think I called it a wallet biopsy by Midstate to force these kids to take the class. I don't see a lot of value in it, but it is what it is.
One thing I was disappointed in that Brent said was, after all these years, our system of universities in the state still not are on the same page as far as transferring credits. I thought that was gone a long time ago, but.
They're working on it.
Work in progress.
Really?
Yeah.
There is a
Like 20 years ago, we're working.
very good website where you can go to try and evaluate what classes that you could take at a technical school or which ones of our dual credit classes will transfer into a 4-year. And that's all getting another revision due this fall, I believe.
This fall.
And then we had another presentation from Joe Vinipal, the new Dean of Students at PODS. And we talked about, well, some of his, what would you say, his view of what he would like to see the school become. He wants to get back closer to the expeditionary learning model. And then I talked about the efforts that they were planning on doing for recruiting, because that's always a problem at PODS to get the enrollment up. And we had discussed a lot about some schools, and notably the Waldorf school out at Amherst and so forth. And he talked about all the ongoing efforts. He did say they graduated a class of 10, so they anticipate the class coming in to be bigger and so forth. So those are the two presentations we had.
Thank you, G.
Thanks, Chief.
You're welcome.
So can I just again ask, or just my question about, the fact that we're seeing more dual enrollment. I mean, we're seeing more students involved, and especially with speech becoming a dual, and that expanded that. We also are seeing more youth apprentices and the potential for more. So could you just talk a little bit about how you've identified some dollars to potentially be able to add to Brett's quote staff? He has no staff right now, it's just him, to add to that, to be able to have another body helping kids.
Sure.
There's two ladies that work in his office.
Correct. There are two currently, Stacy and Jill work in Brent's office, so they provide support. I think what we've identified, and I'll touch on this just a little bit in the budget and program eval presentation. We do have a grant that we write to support CTE programming and YA programming in the district, as part of a consortium with Midstate. As part of that grant writing project, we've now taken on some of the additional grant writing responsibilities, which allocates an additional $45,000 back for our internal use. And that will provide some opportunity in the long term to potentially add some additional time or hours for those staff to support Brent as he continues to expand programming. To both Jim and G's point, we continue to look for additional dual enrollment opportunities for kids. We know that positions them much more solidly as they move out of pre-K-12 into post-secondary, and having as many of those college credits completed when they leave our system is clearly a benefit. So we continue to look for ways we can expand those options.
Excellent, thank
And
you.
I can add one last thing that Brent said, it's nice that all the programs are open to kids from all our high schools. CFC, PODS, and SPASH can participate in all those programs.
Correct.
Okay, thanks, G. We'll move into item 12, the climate survey results, and Sarah's gonna present.
So those again. Alright, let's jump right in. So a friendly reminder before we hop into the data that these are perception surveys. So very much point in time, very much how people were feeling when they took the survey. Participation's voluntary. We did see participation decline again year over year, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we kind of move through the deck. Some responses may have reflected events that were occurring at the time. For example, we may have called an e-learning weather day the day after we deployed the survey, so we may see a lot of comments about e-learning in the survey that I would say some are probably just generally how people feel, but definitely was top of mind as they were completing surveys. So bottom line, what we're really looking for when we look at these surveys is for patterns around perceptions, right? What themes are we seeing? Where are we seeing confidence? Where are we seeing some fragility around that confidence? And really what can we do to address those? Limitations of the survey, it's voluntary participation. So you may have folks who have really strong feelings on either end of that, either really positive or really negative, maybe overrepresented. We see variability in response rates. So some sites are gonna be really high just based on either there's a lot more folks there or they just felt more inclined to participate. Some schools or groups may have fewer responses. This matters a little bit more when we're looking at like the individual school reports, not so much at a district level, but I do think it's worth mentioning. Perceptions we talked about, right? This is really how people felt at the time they took it. And then role and building context. Some staff roles may vary a little bit or sometimes quite a lot of it between sites. So we'd like to keep that in mind when we're looking also. And then remember that the analysis was conducted by a single reviewer, me, and while I tried to remain as objective as possible, it is also possible that there's some unintentional bias in the results, so just keep that in mind as well. Participation snapshot, we had 434 staff respond this year, which represents about 33% of at least our emails that we send this to. So it may not be totally 33% of all folks that we would consider staff, but it is 33% of folks that received the email. Those would include classroom teachers, EAs, special education teachers and assistants, our specialists, support staff, and administrators or coordinators. That is down a bit for 2025 comparison. We had 504 responses. Family climate survey, we had 661 responses that were submitted by families, which represents about 9% of, again, we're using emails. So this went out to a total of just over 7,000 emails. 9% of those responded. Again, we saw a dip from 2025, so we're at 700, where we had 789 respondents. A quick reference just for industry kind of expectations around responses. Anything that's like 10 to 30% we consider pretty good. Anything above 30% we consider very good. So staff, good representative responses. Family, we're close but not quite there. Overall, what we saw coming out of the survey, we see both staff and families reporting a very strong foundation. So from the staff side, we see staff remaining highly engaged and deeply connected to their work. We see families continuing to report strong school level care, strong communication, and a very strong connection to schools. Families feel very connected to schools, very connected to school staff. And then both groups affirm that they feel that schools want students to succeed. So we see staff saying, yes, we want students to succeed and are working towards that, and families are feeling that on their end as well. Areas where we might want to pay some attention. We saw some variability and confidence in district level decision making. That had our largest standard deviation difference. So really varied depending on kind of who we were asking. So that piece was interesting. Staff identified workload, student behavior, implementation capacity as those really key pressure points. Families identified transparency, budget confidence, academic rigor, and future readiness as general concerns. And both groups pointed to student accountability, consistency, and preparation for the future. We looked really specifically at strengths that we saw coming out of the staff survey. Again, it's that connection to the work. So staff reported very high senses of belonging to their colleagues, to the work that they are doing, feeling welcome in their schools, feeling proud of the places that they work and the work that they're doing. We looked really specifically, you may recall, for each of the questions that we have in the survey, we map that back to a really specific domain so we can try to get just a sense of where folks are in different areas of the district. So here we see school culture and belonging for this group being very high, work environment next, building leadership, student experiences and academic expectations, and then district leadership. And again, that student experiences and academic expectations and leadership is where we see the biggest differences, right? Some schools, this is much, much higher than other schools. Or even respondents, if you're looking by like work function. Strengths, when we look at the family survey, families continue to affirm that strong school level care and that very strong connection to school. They feel that they get good updates from schools, they feel that their staff are treated with, their students are treated with dignity and respect, that they feel welcome when they're at school, that school wants them to succeed, and that they feel safe. If we were to look at those domains specific to the family survey, we're seeing strong returns for student support and family connection, student belonging and engagement, school leadership and communication, student learning and future readiness, and then district leadership. If we think of this in a year-over-year context, the story that the surveys are really telling us is that everything is pretty steady. We don't see any big jumps, we don't see any big dips. We see modest improvements, and we see some modest drops that are worth paying attention to. Staff, very stable. Family survey, we do see a little bit more variability. Specifically, things to pay attention to there, I think, are around that student learning and future readiness, and then leadership, which really came through wanting to have a better understanding of why decisions were being made. So more communication, I think, and engagement around that. And then when we dug into that future readiness piece, it's really around, I think, having a shared understanding of what future readiness might mean for students, I think, is what I'm seeing both from staff and from families. We've traditionally talked about these surveys as like, here is the staff survey and here is the family survey, and I wanted tonight to have us kind of look at both of those and where they are aligning. And what we are seeing is relationships are a strength. So we see that on both families and staff. That's a really big positive, I think, to take away from these two surveys. We see alignment around communication, around district level decision making. So both groups are showing a desire for that increased transparency and communication around the why of those district decisions. Student accountability and behavior are coming through on both. They're coming through in different ways because the lenses are different, but they are talking about the same thing. Future readiness is an emerging thing we talked about. And then we really specifically asked some questions about 4K this year. just very directly, because we know that's been, I mean, especially when we think about open enrollment and seeing that we're losing families before they're ever even engaging here, I wanted to get a little more information there. What we learned there was really that transition communication matters, so there's no red flags about experience or about something being, quote unquote wrong, but I do think there's opportunities there for us to bridge from 4K to K a little bit more intentionally. Along the same lines, where those perspectives differ, mostly are coming into just lens, right? So staff are thinking about it from their perspective, as they well should be, being inside those buildings, managing that workload, thinking about student behavior as a working condition. Special education demands certainly came through. Families are thinking more about the experiences from the outside of the district. So transparency communication, budget confidence, school to family communication, and preparation for college career. If we think about like really the shared themes, student behavior and accountability, I think is probably the one that came through the most. And I want to frame this from not so much like a discipline issue, but how it affects learning conditions, staff morale, family trust, and school culture. So when we have those kind of inconsistent or reports or perceptions of inconsistency around student accountability, that's what's coming through there. And then the shared theme about academic expectations and future readiness. I think there's an opportunity there. We're seeing really strong confidence in the intent, right? So both groups are agreeing that, schools are saying, yes, we want students to succeed, and families are saying, yes, we know that schools want our students to succeed. I think there's opportunities for alignment on what that success actually means, and really intentionally talking about what schools are doing to help students be prepared for the future. I did go through and code all of our open-ended feedback. I do share some really specific examples for staff in their own, for our principals in their own reports, but for the purposes here, I just wanted you to see what was coming through. So we look at staff, these are the themes that just come through at a very high rate. Doesn't mean they're positive, doesn't mean they're negative, it just means that they're on people's minds. So from a perception issue or perspective, we're seeing staff, not surprisingly, are thinking about resources, curriculum, professional development, belonging relationships, building leadership and communication, student learning, and then workload. Families, same idea. Things we're seeing come through really high there. Again, curriculum instruction, and academic rigor, which I think is really positive. Communication, student behavior, discipline, accountability, relationships with staff and teachers, those are positive. I will just say those are positive, which is phenomenal to see. And then technology screens and e-learning came through very high, but again, I do think it is a reflection of, it was a long winter. We had some really tough days.
I think there's also some e-learning fatigue as we also think about some of the professional development, especially with our littles. I've heard a lot of community feedback as that last one was called, not that the choice was wrong,
No,
but just the e-learning fatigue for our
Absolutely.
elementary students.
Yeah,
So,
it was a long.
yeah.
Areas for continued action, so just some things that I know I'll be thinking about, I've asked our leadership team to think about as they are planning for next year, is that those pieces around communication and trust, consistency and accountability, workload capacity, and then academic expectations and readiness. Next steps, school leaders will receive their site-specific reports with insights that identify trends, specific to their school communities. I also give them some, if I were thinking about this is what I might want to think about. District leaders have received the same information. I know a lot of them have already dug into that. And then from a board level, considering how these insights may impact goal setting at your retreats. With that, I'll entertain questions.
It's not in, I couldn't find it in here, the presentation.
No, we just finished the presentation.
Okay, this means you're
After.
available
Absolutely, yeah.
to us.
I've got the presentation and then both reports, so like the actual report
Yeah.
for both staff and families. We'll get for you.
That'd be
That,
great.
that would be great to see.
Yeah. So
Thank
you
you.
can dig right in there and see kind of that question
Yeah.
and what went up and what went down.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
I have a really nerdy question to
That
ask.
was-
On slide one, I feel like G, on slide
that's
one, what was you shared the number of surveys that came in, how did the percentages compare? Like at some point,
Oh, that's a really good question. I
Just-
will not be able to answer off the
No,
top
that's
of my
okay,
head,
but
but I
just-
can go back and see
cool.
how many.
Yeah.
That's a good question. Yeah,
Okay.
I will find out.
it's not urgent, but just kind of,
Yeah.
since we know enrollment has been fluctuating and.
Are they all done by email?
Yes, yeah. We do offer, like, if folks needed, we have language in there that if they would prefer a hard copy, we will help facilitate that. We have, and then we also send, them out in Spanish and Hmong through our parent partners.
Sure.
So we have, we're trying not to miss that group of those groups as well.
So any questions from board members? Any particular area that you think might be helpful to bring forward to the retreat? Are there, you know, again, if we're looking at the context of goal setting, and you don't have to answer that tonight, I just wanna put that out there. We're gonna be pulling the agenda together, and if there are a couple areas on this climate survey, staff and parents, that you feel like you might want to have us taking a little bit closer look at the retreat, that would be, if you don't have an idea tonight, if you wanna just reach out to Corey or Chris and let them know which areas you wanna look at. I mean, the two that kind of popped out to me, number one are the communication. And then the second just is, and it's been, again, as Sarah said, there's not a lot new, but there has been just that kind of trust in district leadership, which includes us, and also just kind of budget finance stuff. And again, I think part and parcel, communication and things, so.
I think it would be important to see that survey, to have a copy of that, if you want some, because one of the things jumped out at me was how is decision making and why are these decisions being made? People don't understand. And I think Liz, being on the task force, you know, that's educating people, things that we know about, that the community doesn't know about or parents don't know about, and then all of a sudden it makes sense when they see it. So I don't know how that could be communicated, but maybe there's a way to look at that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll have a lot more after I see it, you know, cause we went through some of
We
those
did
kind
go
of
through it
fast.
quickly, yes.
But the amount of agreement from last year's survey to this year's survey, you had differences of like 0.2%. That's really small,
It's small,
Yeah.
yeah.
so. But it doesn't surprise me that, those
Sorry,
there,
I'm trying to get there for you.
district leadership was like 53% at the bottom there. But to me, it's like the closer the parents are to the person in school is the one they trust the most. So they see the teacher all the time, then the next up is like the school secretary or whoever works with them, principal, and then, you know, it's just gonna be that way.
So we'll be at the bottom.
For sure.
All right, any other comments? Okay,
Thank you,
thank you,
Sarah.
Sarah. All right, the budget evaluation process.
Yeah, you are.
All right, thanks, Meg. I can start out here with a review of our cumulative review of positions that we have been through as part of the budget program eval. Quick reminder on this slide, this is the last time you'll see these large cumulative numbers that we've sort of been through over the last 3 years. So as we round out this fiscal year on June 30th, we'll look to zero all of these out, and when we provide our updates moving forward, we'll provide annual totals rather than that running total. Sarah mentioned earlier the landing page that's been created on our website that houses all the information. This will all still be there, so anyone can go back and see the total number of positions that have been reviewed, those that have been filled as is, those that have been frozen or eliminated. But again, we'll zero all of this out when we bring the budget program presentation back, either in August or September. As you know, July, many of the staff who are engaged in this work are out. on summer break, so it's difficult to continue moving on some of this, but I am pleased to report some additional cost savings that we found even in the last month, after providing the last update. So 644 total positions, that's in the last 3 years that we've been engaged in the budget and program review process. 594 of those are fill as is. Positions currently frozen, that's up one from what I reported last month to 2. We had one position there, that is our TIS position, one of our technology integration specialists. That position is still frozen, but I do have a bit of an update to share on that when we get a little bit later in the slide deck. And we do have a current EA position that now has been added to that frozen category that we continue to review. That total number of eliminated positions also is up. That's up 2 from what I reported out last month, from 46 up to 48, and I can give some additional detail on what that cost savings look like when we get to that more detailed overview. So I want to provide also an update on the co-curricular programming review that we've now completed. We reviewed about 110 co-curricular stipend positions. Those exist across the district. We collaborated with our secondary leaders to evaluate those positions, the responsibilities, the student impact. We looked at participation levels and enrollment trends over a 3-year period. And what we did was we developed a standardized classification framework to improve the consistency and sustainability of co-curricular compensation. So there was some, I think, hesitancy when we went into reviewing co-curriculars, just because, not unique to Stevens Point, but in many districts, stipend positions, Appendix B for either co-curriculars or athletics, just gets really messy. So taking this on, I know, took a little bit longer than I anticipated, certainly longer than Beth and her team anticipated, but we appreciate the patience, and we do believe we've landed on a place now that is much cleaner. Even though we didn't find substantial cost savings in this review, we did identify some that we'll recognize immediately and some that we'll recognize over time through attrition. We did organize the positions into a tiered structure, so now all stipend positions that are considered co-curricular are categorized as either an event coordinator, advisors level 1 through 5, and or directors. We eliminated or consolidated select positions through attrition where that was possible and where that was appropriate. We aligned all of our stipend levels with responsibilities, and we did that through an analysis of regional comparables. We were able to look at data from DC Everest, from Marshfield, and from Wisconsin Rapids. So ours now is very much in alignment with what other stipend positions in the co-curricular category look like in other districts that we would consider regional peers. The financial impact there, that is the immediate savings we'll realize in the 26-27 fiscal year, is only $202. Again, it's important to note that all of the cost saving efficiencies that we've identified, particularly when they impact staff, have only been realized through attrition. So similarly, in this co-curricular program review, even though some stipends will be reduced, they will not impact any of the people that are currently in those stipend positions. So some stipend positions may be compensated at a lower rate, but that lower rate of compensation will not be realized until the position is vacated and filled again with a new candidate. So a new candidate would accept the position knowing that this is the stipend amount versus a loss of something perhaps that they've been experiencing for maybe 10 years that they've served in that role. Our projected annual savings through attrition and position alignment is approximately $6,500. And that was, again, we didn't go into this co-curricular program review anticipating we'd find huge savings, but Beth and her team invested an incredible amount of time in this review, and we were able to identify some cost savings. So thanks to Beth and folks in the HR department. I did report, there's no change here based on what I reported out back in May. I will indicate here that we did find one additional software reduction in the amount of $2,000. So that line item in May was $67,087. This was a software platform that we currently use in HR that Beth was able to find a similar program that we were able to leverage for a slightly lower amount. So that was an additional $2,000 in savings there. That total savings in recurring efficiencies is now $211,457. Here are our staffing recurring efficiencies. We did have that EA position that was eliminated at half year back in December. That was an EA out at Kennedy. We now have 11.7 certified staff positions. Again, those are not all full-time positions. Some of those are 0.6, some of those are 0.4, totaling just over $1 million. And then 6.25 in staff reductions and certified staff at the elementary level, totaling 764. So total reductions there in staffing alone are at 1.8, just shy of $1.9 million. So really impressive work that's been completed there this year. And we do then also want to factor in the ads, no change here from what I reported out both in April and in May. But we can't lose sight of the ads that we made, and primarily those were in the area of 4K with the addition of the full day 4K classrooms that I'd like to also report out are all, if not completely full, really close to completely full. So when we said there was overwhelming interest in full day 4K programming, we've definitely realized that interest was real. So if we take the total efficiencies and savings, again, that would be the things and the staff, totaling just over $2 million for maybe anyone in the room or anyone watching that's giving our staff and our administrative team an informal performance rating that is 1 million over what we really were charged with identifying annually. So when I say I'm proud of the work that's been done this year, and I'm proud of the concerted and really collaborative effort, our staff don't get the opportunity to stand here and report out, but this certainly is evidence of their effort. And I do believe that we are building a culture that's not only built on supporting and fostering academic excellence, but we're also fostering a culture that is focused on responsible stewardship of taxpayer dollars, as well as just being more financially responsible. They are asking hard questions when staff positions open. They are thinking about how they can do the same work differently or more efficiently when those staff positions open. And I can't do that work alone, and without their mindfulness and without their innovation, we would not see the numbers that we're seeing reflected here. So a big pat on the back to staff who don't get an opportunity to stand up here and get any credit for the work that they are very much doing and very much a part of. Our net savings there is, again, over that $1 million mark, even when we consider the ads at about 1.5 million, and we really go into each year annually with the hopes of identifying $1 million. So we're about $500,000 over what we projected as a target.
That's this year's.
Those
Just
are real,
for this
those
year.
are realized, they're identified in this year, we'll realize them in the 26-27 school year. So most of those positions exist still right now, but they won't exist in the upcoming year. Good clarification, G. I do want to highlight also, because I touched on some additional revenue, there are a few additions here. You heard Corey mention in her report the blind and visually impaired grant that we were provided in the amount of $2,305. That was an additional source of revenue. We also have, that comes through Jenny's department and some of the incredible work that's been happening there. Also, I'm pleased to report out that we just have recently learned that we are being funded in the amount of $990,000 from the Century Grant over the next 3 years, so that'll begin in 2026 through 2029. One of those frozen positions is the TIS position. You heard me mention that earlier. We'll be able to take that out of frozen because we have the ability to now fund it with this grant funding, and that does not become an additional Fund 10 expense. So we consider that really great work. Jeff and the team up at SPASH and secondary leadership did an incredible job pulling together the Century Grant proposal, invested an incredible amount of time. I'm really pleased. We're waiting on Century to make the press release that will announce the funding for this grant. They were comfortable with me sharing it here as part of this presentation. And as soon as I receive the agreement for the grant, get that signed and get the press release, we'll follow with one internally here in the district. So Sarah and her team are fully prepared to do that. Really impressive there as well, an additional $1.4 million in additional revenue that we've identified. Not just in the next year, you can see that some of those grants span over the next 2 to 3 years. So even though we don't realize all of that additional revenue next year, we do see it sprinkled in over the not so distant future here. Again, targeted programs for review that will begin once staff are welcomed back in August or September. That final tiered review of stipends for co-curriculars has now been completed. We'll examine staffing in the EA employee groups for both SPED and regular ed. We'll review the staffing levels and achievement data in the area of reading as a primary focus, and we'll conduct a more in-depth analysis of our at-risk programming. So those are what we've prioritized in terms of programming review when staff are back in the fall. That concludes my report for June, and as Sarah referenced, she did mostly complete, the budget and program review website, landing page on the website, and I'd like to spend a little more time with the board and the community, just walking through what's available there and what historical data we have housed on that site, and I'll do that either in August or September.
Chris?
So, Chris, thank you for mentioning all of the staff who are on the front lines and doing that below the, administrative work, looking at things, thinking about it, and bringing that forward. I think the systemic review, the budget review is so important. But we're saying how important it is, but all the work that goes into it, you and Jeff and all of the staff, that's huge. You're doing a job and you're trying to pick apart what can be done, what can't be done, without doing any damage, which is amazing. Also looking at the systemic review of the stipends. I've heard over the years some of the inequality or people not understanding that. So putting that in line is such a great thing. So thank you very much to you, to Jeff, and to all the staff and superintendent doing this. It's really important in times when the community is looking at higher taxes and what are we investing in, and we're showing the district people and the community that they're working hard to show the value of what we do and that we're in it with everyone. So thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
G?
I had a question. I don't wanna say go back to that slide.
I actually, as soon as you raised your
Yeah, I
hand, I put my finger on that button. I just wanna know how many times I hit.
You've got him trained.
The 48 positions eliminated,
Yes.
that's since you started, right? And that's not this
Yes.
year.
That's over 3 years.
And I asked you before, could you categorize those, like how many teachers, how many EAs and so forth?
Yes, and I can send a list of what categories they represent right now. One of the most substantial adds from what I reported out in May to now in June in terms of staffing reductions and that total cost savings was the elimination of the administrative position out at PODS. And we've now filled that position with the Dean of Students. G, you mentioned that earlier in your report with Joe Vinipol. So that was the most significant reduction that we made. That was a change from what I reported out in May to what I'm reporting out in June. I certainly can provide you with an overview or a total of the numbers of certified staff, what we would consider non-certified staff or EA staff and administrative staff.
Yeah,
That's
it'd
that are
be-
included in that 48.
It'd be interesting to see faculty, administrative, EAs, custodial, I don't know if you have to, other, what would you say, non-professional staff? Could do
Non-certified
that,
staff.
would that be all right?
Sure,
Absolutely.
We can give you those aggregate totals.
Thank you, Chris.
And just to note that they're not all FTE positions, is that correct?
They're not all full-time.
They're
They're
not
all- not a
full-time, they're not a
full-time.
1.0 FTEs. Some of them are a
So,
0.2 reduction or a 0.4 reduction. So when we say 48, that doesn't mean 40 full-time positions have been eliminated. Of those 48, some of them were only half-time or less. Yeah, and we factored all of that in when we determined the cost savings. Because we actually go through and calculate what the salary and benefit package were for those positions.
well, thank you, and what a wonderful grant from Century, that's just amazing
It's a great
to
event.
be able to support
They
that, yeah.
continue to support
Yep.
us.
Yep,
Okay,
it's
they're
wonderful.
incredible partners.
Wonderful. So- All
Thank
right,
you,
thanks,
Chris.
All right, I'm gonna point out, we have the school board retreat at Mid-State Technical College starting at 5 PM on June 22nd. At this point, we are not planning on having a board meeting in July. We typically don't. Many of our administrators are 11-month and also so are on vacation in July or are not working during that time. So we'll let you know if for whatever reason, a situation arose that we would have to have a meeting, but at this point in time, we will not have committee meetings or board meetings in July. So then our next regular board meeting would be in August. So I am now looking for a motion to convene into closed session pursuant to 1985 (1) C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee, specifically consideration for employment recommendations and contracts for 2 administrators and the superintendent's evaluation. And 1985, paren 1, paren E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, specifically to review and discuss a building rental agreement. Do I have a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
All right, I have a motion and second, and could you call the roll, Nicole?
Ms. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Liebrick,
Yes.
Mr. Lepak,
Yes.
Ms. Potter Nelson,
Yes.
Ms. Mercer,
Yes.
Mr. Kowalski,
Yes.
Mr. Pope,
Yes.
Ms. Erler.
Yes.
Motion carries.